you are a well-known stand-up and kind of. Yeah. So talk a little bit about how that supports your
Do
day
10
job.
minutes, Laurie. Could you please?
do a tight 7.
It's all abortion jokes, guys. Well, I started doing stand-up in '87, and I've been doing it ever since. My first writing job was on Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn in New York City, and that was a job where you worked with other comics because it was kind of a roundtable show with stand-ups and Colin and other stand-ups. So that was the entree, I guess, the entry level, the gateway job. And then I had some other late night jobs. So this one, the big difference here is this is in LA, and there's less stand-up here. New York, you could do like 3 or 4 spots a night. I used to do that and write every day. I was obsessive, and I had terrible relationships.
Oh, well, that freed up some time.
Yeah. So now I do stand up maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and we just had a 2-week hiatus, and I worked in San Antonio and Atlanta. So I try and just do stand up as much as I can because I love it, and the material I do on stage is so different from monologue jokes. It's like they're not related whatsoever, and it's a real release to be able to cuss and
There's a Sondheim lyric I love, which is, work is what you do for others, art is what you do for yourself.
Yeah.
And it always feels that way. And do you feel that too?
Know any more Sondheim lyrics?
Do you?
Yes.
Okay,
Actually,
well, we can
everybody
turn
putting
the
it
panel
together
into-
bit by bit.
I had a question for you guys, the performing writers. Do you find that it gives you more credibility being a stand-up and then going in there and selling a joke, as opposed to just being a writer?
Well, for monologue jokes, we actually submit ours anonymously. So yeah, it's awesome. I mean, if you have a great day, you're the only one that knows.
But the little hearts help,
Yeah.
right? Near the joke.
That's how I dot my I's. That's true.
How do they know when to fire people?
I don't know if you've seen our staff, but there's one job opening every 10 years, and it's because someone leaves.
Is all of your submissions anonymous?
Monologue jokes are. The sketches are not. I mean, because the writer's there, shepherding, doing what you guys do with Kimmel.
Right.
But the monologue, I've heard it's not like that on other shows, and I love it that it's like that with our show because it really protects you on a shitty day.
Yeah.
And everyone has shitty days, and everyone has great days, and you don't need a protection on a great day. You just kind of have a spring in your step,
Well, what happens if writers write the same joke, which does happen?
We usually the 5 of us will meet first before we go to Conan, and we'll pick the best one. And again, no one knows who wrote which one. Usually the 2 silent ones are the ones that are praying.
I don't know. I kind of think this one works better.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just me. Yeah. So, yeah.
But do you wind up being able to tell who wrote which joke a little bit? I felt like that
Kind
happens.
of. I mean, it's fun to guess, because you start to figure out whose voice, and also grammatically who makes that's, it's like Josh Comer's this great writer, but he makes these great errors. I'm like, Josh, that's you, right? Yeah, so you can kind of tell that way, but it's fun. Sometimes, I'll channel Brian Kiley and write one like him, and people think it's a Kiley joke and it's mine. So it's kind of cool to.
Al Hirschfeld always puts a Nina in his jokes.
Anita, a what?
Nina.
A Nina.
I got it now.
I got it too. We're cool.
I got it also.
And do you ever use jokes that are rejected at work and then use them in your stand-up?
Every once in a while, but at Leno I would do that every once in a while, but it was such a different voice than my own. I mean, maybe the core of the joke or the sensibility of the joke, but definitely not the wording of it.
You didn't do it in Jay's voice.
Sometimes I would do it. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. But I found, I don't know. I mean, it depends.
Rachel, do Jon Stewart.
I don't know that. I mean, I think every show is different for what other writers think, because being a comic and being a writer and being a comic and writer are sort of 2 different things, and sometimes it's blended very well, and sometimes being fantastic at one doesn't mean that you'll be great at the other. But being a comic, I have found, has always helped me in the room. I'm a quiet little person. I mean, it's always helped me in that sense. It's always helped me in the sense of being, I'm a woman in a room full of guys and people are saying things. I mean, it's always helped with sort of instinct and just being able to be a presence and being able to.
Well, it's true. I've seen little Beth here in action in a writer's room where she's just sitting back there and the guys are whoa, threat, and then suddenly you'll just blurt out a few things and they're just like, whoa. It's because she's got that sensibility. She's got the stand-up sensibility and she can pitch an idea and you floor them.
Oh, well, so. I appreciate that. I mean, it's the same thing that got me asked to leave classes in more than one time.
Who on this panel is or was the only woman in the writer's room? Can I see a raise of hands? And Larry, don't even.
I was also the only African American in two writers.
That's true. So here's.
Can I ask who was the biggest penis in the writer's room?
Rachel. Yeah.
It was Rachel.
So now, what's interesting, because I just saw that clip, and that, there was one that was made reference to Sex and the City, one was Paris Hilton, one was Lady Gaga, one was Oprah, and they were actually all the sensibility, they were just funny, but they were things I would think women might be drawn to more than men. So I guess, if we can just talk a little about that issue, and if you feel self-conscious being the only woman, or...
Well, I was the only one. When I got to Letterman, I was the only woman they'd had on the CBS show, probably literally and figuratively at that point, in the writer's room. And these were a bunch of young guys. These were a bunch of guys in there. I was 25, and I was one of the older people in the room, which seems wrong. Wow. Yeah, and they were very funny, but it's a very specific dynamic. And there were, 8, 10 guys in the room, and me. And then the first day, we watched the show while we ate dinner. We'd watch the taping, and I guess the TV had been moved by the cleaners or something. So a couple of these guys who were comedy writers, so let's assume they were not big, strong guys, decided that they would move the TV about 4 feet to the right, and it was a big TV, and it took some effort. And I quietly said, "I am so turned on." And I received silence as they all looked uncomfortably at one another and thought, "Is she?" And I thought, this is going to be the longest 13 weeks of my life. And it may have been some of the longest 26, yes. They had no idea what to think.
Do you find...
I was going to ask Beth, because are there any other women on the Leno writing staff?
No, I am the only woman. Well, what's interesting is it always seems like I'm always the only woman. Like I was on the Man Show, and I was directing on the Man Show, but really doing what I do now. And I was the only woman, and it was the Man Show, and it was with Jimmy and Adam, who are actually, it's so funny. They're like more in touch with their feminine side than a lot of other people I know. It's funny. The Man Show seemed actually more female. But, and then, it just seems like I'm always the only woman. So when I got there, it didn't seem sort of that, and also there's a executive producer's a woman, the director's a woman, It is a little weird sometimes when you're in the I don't know if you're in the new building, but there's this conference room and there's like 22 men and you, and it just is, sometimes I just go like, wow, this would be an interesting picture.
I always think about what it would be like reversed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I days and days and days of penis jokes and fart jokes, and I think, oh man, I would love for you guys to survive 1 week of being the only guy with all women, because I think that would be interesting. Yeah. I think we're just tougher.
Larry, is it interesting?
To be what?
He wasn't listening.
I'm sorry, I zoned out.
He wasn't listening.
A woman.
This is what it's like. They're not listening. It's all women, and the guy's not listening.
I'm sorry, what were you guys talking about?
Question answered.
Larry.
My issues are so contrary, not opposite.
No, but you know what it's like to look around the room and not see breasts that look like yours.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What is
much so.
contrary for you? What?
Well, usually I'm the only black in the room.
Yeah,
So I experience it from a different point of view, not a gender point of view, but from a cultural, racial point of view. So.
And do you find yourself ever like sticking up, like, no, that's not what a black person would say? Because I've been in that position of arguing when I was on Coach, like, this is what a woman would do, and all these guys saying, no, she wouldn't.
And that's always based on their psycho girlfriends. Like,
Right.
all right, you're attracted to lunatics, but that's not all of us. Yeah.
I think there are more differences in perspective between men and women than the racial perspectives in terms of a writing room. Because genders we just have different things going on, and
But that's what we think too. I mean,
yeah, and I think those differences are good. So, but black and white, unless you're doing something specifically about culture, then it's maybe an issue. But usually, it's not that much of an issue.
It's weird when you say the perspectives of thinking that there are females and males in the room, and most of the time when you're in a writer's room, you're not writing for yourself, you're not writing for a female, you're writing for the host, and you're all writing for the same host. So, when you're female or male, it doesn't matter. You're writing for that host, so you write in that host's voice. And so it's very frustrating sometimes when they say, oh, you're going to bring the female perspective in. No, I'm writing for that voice. Right. Yeah. And that's not a female perspective. That is that particular celebrity's voice. So it's, we're just comedy writers.
Yeah, I found it really interesting to go from writing for men, and I did not expect to find this, but to writing for Ellen. I mean, her voice, her comedy voice, happens to be very similar to my own. So the things that sort of fall out of my mouth that make her laugh are things that, right, we could use that for the show. I mean, and writing for Jay and Dave were things that I certainly thought were funny, but they were a little bit more thought through. They would sort of, in a way, writing in a fluent second language. And it's not something I especially appreciated until I started working for a woman, and I didn't do it intentionally, and I didn't expect to have any of that. But it's a voice that comes much more easily to me.
Do you think that's because she's female? Or you think it's just a different style of her comedy, or is it a combination?
I think it's a little bit of everything, but I have noticed, I mean, for the same reason were not a ton, I mean, there are a lot of guys on the staff where I am, but I found that, sort of straight frat guys who thrive elsewhere, or who may thrive elsewhere, or have thrived elsewhere, don't necessarily do so great in that room because, no, she has a different perspective, she has a different voice. She's not going to do a joke about, who wears the pants in the family.
Well, she does.
And I've seen them pitched, and I thought, no, probably not the right voice.
I wanted Rachel and Beth and Larry, too, to talk a little about late night writing as the stepping stone to other genres. And if you found it as helpful as I did when you made the move.
I mean, I don't see it and didn't see it as a stepping stone because it was what I wanted to do. So I wasn't, doing it to learn how to do something else. But I moved into sitcom writing post Daily Show primarily because I had been trained. I had an MFA in playwriting, which is really useful, and so I'd been trained in writing character and dialogue and stuff, and I really enjoyed it, and I sort of wanted to move into writing more dialogue and story, not just jokes. But it was a stepping stone career-wise, certainly, but I absolutely loved it and think it's a different entity. So.